Listen to this compared to this. So when I first picked up the guitar, I soon discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan, and it was like game over. And it's not going to surprise any of you to know this, but I tried to do everything like him. Now, despite my best efforts to copy everything about his technique, there's one thing that he did regularly that I see now that escaped me for at least 15 years. I think it's because I was early enough in my journey. I just saw his hand moving like this, and I did what felt natural, which was typical up vibrato. So fast forward, I'm doing Stevie Snacks, YouTube's rolling, and all of a sudden I discover that there are players out there that are way closer to Stevie Ray Vaughan than me. You got Tommy Katona, Matthew Scott, Philip Sayce. Eventually I notice when they do that vibrato, I think they're pulling down instead of pushing up. Aside from being really intimidated by their much superior skill and technique, I noticed that their vibrato sounded more like Stevie Ray Vaughan than mine, and it didn't make any sense. They're just pulling down and I'm pushing up. I don't understand why it would make any difference. And so for a long time, I just ignored it and said, it's
virtually identical.
But today it occurred to me, I think I finally stumbled onto why the downward vibrato sounds more like Stevie Ray Vaughan than upward vibrato. Listen to this compared to this. Do it again. There's a couple things going on that I think are causing the difference. And if you don't hear any difference, then you're exactly like me up until about 30 minutes ago. Keep in mind what's happening as you pull down. The bottom side, like you're focused in on the G string here. If you just do it in isolation, you probably won't hear any difference, because here I'm being very deliberate and I'm focusing just on the G string. But what about in the context of playing? When I'm doing the downward vibrato here, watch what happens with the G string, or the B string right here. Watch this. The B string is moving ever so slightly, and I'm never playing the vibrato like this in the context of playing. I'm always keeping my finger wrapped, and I have good muting technique, so I'm just laying on top here and pressing down the tip on the G string. But I am also dragging the B string across the fret as I do it. So you hear this in the background. And when I do the upwards vibrato, you hear, you either hear that note on the D string bumping in and out, or you hear that ringing as it rubs across the frets. So on one hand, you get the B string ringing out as it's dragged across the frets without actually picking it, or you get your finger bumping against the D string if you do upward vibrato. So I think that is part of the reason that the downward vibrato motion sounds more like Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's a couple other things that I think might be contributing to it. Another thing is, it is easier to pull down further than it is to push up further, because it is you're doing it with a single string. Okay, it is easier to pull down because you're not separating your finger from the fingernail. So it's easier with less effort to get a wider vibrato sound than it is with pushing up. It also saves your finger, because if you're doing this vibrato aggressively and trying to get a wide sound, it's like doing a single finger bend with these heavy strings, which is really hard. So you end up getting a wider vibrato sound with less effort, which I also think contributes to it. Now, the last reason, which is kind of minuscule, is the fact that when you do a downward vibrato, your G string is passing over the pole pieces for the G and the B string, kind of bridging that gap there, as opposed to going between the G string and the D string up here. Now, I don't have this issue with the Zex coil pickups that I use because they're very well balanced, but if you look at the pole pieces on most Fender pickups, they're kind of staggered. And so they get less output over the B string than they do over the D string. And so I think that may be contributing to the tone of the note a little bit as well. So you're not going to hear it as much with mine because my pickups are more balanced than some of the old vintage ones. But I think the ringing of the B string and the ringing or the bumping of the D string are two of the things that I completely missed when I was kind of dismissing this downward vibrato as sounding any different. And I have to say this, I'm not telling anybody that they should sound more like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I am kind of past the point where sounding more like him is something that I feel drawn to. I'm still curious about it in kind of a weirdly scientific way, but it's no longer like core to like sounding more like Stevie Ray Vaughan will make me feel better about my playing. The kind of things that excite me about playing today are usually not things that I learn more from him. But this little vibrato thing is something that escaped me for so long. I just wanted to make a lesson to share it. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, thanks for watching.